Setting up your meeting for Facebook Live.
Yeah, it's live.
The recording is okay?
Yeah. Let's begin. A warm welcome to our guest, Dr. Prashant Meshram. I am Dr. Anuradha Bele, and with me is Dr. Sonika Bodhi. I would also like to welcome my students and the entire audience logged in to listen to this webinar. Today's webinar is one more step by Ambedkar Caravan and Mangesh Dhariwale sir to make us realize that regardless of caste, gender, or circumstances, we all can achieve our full potential with focus, determination, and community support. I now request Dr. Sonika Bodhi to introduce our guest speaker for today.
Thank you so much, Anuradha ma'am. It is my great honor to welcome one of our success stories and role model of our future generation, Dr. Prashant Meshram. Prashant grew up in small town of Chandrapur in Maharashtra in a middle class family. He is the first generation of doctors in his family. He finished MBBS from JJ Hospital, Grant Medical College, Mumbai. He was an active member of Doctor Ambedkar Medicos Association in JJ and also participated in various cultural activities. After his MBBS, in his second attempt for PG, he succeeded in gaining admission for postgraduation course in the field of his choice, that is orthopedics, from the prestigious Sion Hospital, Mumbai. After post-graduation, he also passed his DNB Orthopedics exam in first attempt. Subsequently, he finished his bond of 1-year government service in Sion Hospital, Mumbai. He thus gaining valuable ground level experience as an intern in JJ Hospital, resident doctor in KM Hospital, and junior consultant in Sion Hospital, building up his CV and networking with mentors. Thereafter, he traveled to South Korea to learn from the best knee and shoulder specialists in the Seoul National University, which is the biggest university there, for a period of 3 months. Noticing his competency and efficiency, Prashant was offered a 1-year fully funded fellowship at TK Hospital, which is a highest volume of surgical center in South Korea for knee replacement. Gaining trust from his mentors at TK Hospital, he handled a variety of responsibility ranging from surgery, research, fellowship management, as well as hospital administration. By the end of his successful fellowship of about 2 years, he was even offered a full-time job to work in South Korea, but he chose to study further and deepen his knowledge. Subsequently, he was chosen for the prestigious Advanced Shoulder Surgery Fellowship in Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, USA, which was fully funded by the J.W. Merritt Research Foundation. Prashant has authored over 10 international scientific publications and book chapters in knee and shoulder surgery. Also, he delivered podium and poster presentation in international meetings in Korea and USA. He was a keynote speaker in various social events in South Korea related to spirituality and old age. He has all these accolades of double masters in orthopedics, 3 international fellowships, and several published articles and talks at international stage in his bag at a mere age of 31 years. So I welcome you, Dr. Prashant Meshram. Over to you. Please, sir.
All right. Jai Bhim, my dear friends. Welcome you all. I'm Dr. Prashant Meshram. We'll be talking today about overseas fellowships for Indian doctors. What are various opportunities and obstacles? I work at the Johns Hopkins University right now. few facts about this university is the name really is not John, which many people can. It has an extra S, John's. That is the name of this gentleman which we see here, who was a great philanthropist who donated $7 million in 1873, which was a huge amount then. It was the maximum donation in the history of the United States at that time. That was used to establish this university. Since 1873, Johns Hopkins has really contributed in many ways to medical education. It is considered as the birthplace of modern American medicine as we know it. It actually integrated medical education with teaching and research. It began teaching at bedside, which is a boon for the doctors. It developed what we call, what we know today as cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Modern genetics started at Johns Hopkins University. It is also the birthplace for many medical specialties like pediatrics, neurosurgery, urology, endocrinology. It is the first research university in the United States. First women doctors graduated from this university. It is also the first one to start fellowships and internships. The first open heart surgery for blue baby syndrome happened at Johns Hopkins. It is also the first one to develop renal dialysis. It was the first one to use rubber gloves in surgeries. It has also become recently the first one to ban latex gloves. Johns Hopkins has given the world 39 Nobel laureates. 4 of them are still working in the same campus where I walk every day, or used to before the COVID. It has really established itself as a world leader in COVID research. All the data we see about how many patients are infected, how many patients are dead, and so on, divided by country, divided by state. Most of that, the source of that is Johns Hopkins. Involved in COVID-related vaccine, preparation of the vaccine, preparation of treatment protocols for different specialties. So it is really, is leading the world when it comes to COVID. Since 1873, now as we stand in 2020, Johns Hopkins is not just limited to School of Medicine. I would like to tell the audience today, some of you may not be of medical background. It's really the epitome of higher education, whether it's medicine or it's public health, it's nursing, engineering, physics, business, arts and science, music and dance. Whatever field if you are associated, you should consider this as you should aspire to come here, because it will really change your life. Of course, I'm very, very grateful to be in this institute. I would like to thank Dr. Cullen, who's a great guy. He's my mentor here at Johns Hopkins. I would also like to thank Donna and Bill J.W. Marriott, who are by far the most humble people I have ever met. They funded my fellowship with the JW Foundation grants. So coming to the topic, what are your options after MBBS or any graduation if you are aspiring to do an overseas fellowship or overseas higher education? So one of the options is you can do a postgraduate residency program, but you will need to pass a licensing exam for this, like for example, USMLE for the US, LAB for the UK. Another option, if you do not want to do a licensing exam, is you can just get a master's in public health or business and go abroad for higher education. The topic which today we are really going to talk about is fellowships, which can be done after undergraduate, your postgraduate, or even after your super specialty in DM or MCH. You can get a fellowship abroad. You may need a license if you're planning to do a clinical fellowship, but for a research fellowship, which I'm doing right now, you do not need a license. So before we begin talking about overseas fellowship, I would like to make some disclosures which are relevant to the topic. First is I have no conflict of interest financially. Unfortunately, the organizing team did not pay me any money to do this. Another thing is I'm a small town guy. I was raised in Chandrapur. I'm not sure if you can see my pointer here in the central pic. You can see this television set which we had in the childhood, which had kind of a shutter kind of television. So I grew up around all of that. So some of you can relate to that. Another disclosure I have is I'm an orthopedic surgeon. Even if I'm working in Johns Hopkins, I'm not an expert on COVID. Being an orthopedic surgeon, I would urge you not to ask me those questions. We have very limited knowledge of chest X-rays and ECG and those kind of things. What we really are is we are doctors with drills and saw And as you can see that Joey almost killed Chandler, then, asking orthopedic surgeon about COVID-related questions is really dangerous to your health. So opinions on fellowship today, which I'm going to present, are really based on, first is scientific evidence. Second is my experience over 14 years of working in 3 major hospitals in Mumbai as an intern, as a resident, and as a junior consultant, or I've done one in Sion Hospital. After that, I moved on for a couple of years at Seoul National University in South Korea for a knee and shoulder fellowship. I was involved in fellowship management. I was involved in managing the hospital administration. That taught me a lot. Another thing which really helped me was my experience at Hopkins. So my opinions are based on all of this. I also had opportunity to publish on this, on the issues of young doctors and overseas fellowships, which gave me insights in preparing this talk. So I would like to address this broad topic into 4 subtopics. First is, why should you consider to do a fellowship at all? I mean, after all these years of learning, we go through graduation, post-graduation, and then we are finally ready to get into practice. And what should be the real reasons why should you consider doing a fellowship? Second thing I'm going to talk about is how to get an overseas fellowship, especially the one which is funded. The third thing we're going to talk about is how to excel once you actually get a fellowship, how to get maximum out of it. The final thing I would like to touch is what are the new frontiers of medical research. Coming to the first subtopic is, I would like to give you 5 reasons why all the doctors, for that matter, any graduate, even non-medical, should consider doing a fellowship at all. So first is, overseas fellowship is not a new trend. It is not something which is coming up. It has been around for a very long time. So if you consider AIMS, the doctors from AIMS have been going since 1950s. 56% of doctors kind of go abroad for higher education. In Bangalore Medical College, 1996 batch alone, there were 40 doctors who went to the UK for higher education. Consider my batch in KEM, Orthopedics, 2016, 55% of us went for an overseas fellowship. So overall, people around you at some point of time in their life, about 50% of people in India are going to do some or the other kind of overseas fellowship. So it is not really a new trend. This trend in India is kind of low as compared to what we see in the United States, where over 95% of resident doctors go for a fellowship training. But things are rapidly changing in India. Second reason why you should really consider doing a fellowship is because the myths around how clinical practice is perceived is changing rapidly. First is, I was told by many of my mentors and seniors and many other doctors that the key is to start early clinical practice, and it assures the success. Probably kind of changing a lot, because people are really trying to sharpen their axe before chopping the tree. If you have, there's a great story behind it, that if you have 30 minutes to chop a tree, you should really be smart. You should sharpen the blade of your axe for 20 minutes and spend 10 minutes to chop the tree without an effort. So it is really becoming that. Second thing is the kind of preference of the society, or the preference of patients, in which people want to go to a super specialist instead of just a specialist. And I'm nothing against general practitioners, or they are extremely important part of our system. They have an extremely important place in the system. But you are someone who is looking for professional excellence, who is looking to do a very specialized kind of work, then probably it's a good idea for you to do a fellowship. And 10 years down the line, when you will be at the prime of your practice, you should not be a victim of FOMO, which is a common term in social media. It actually means fear of missing out, for some of who are not familiar with that term. So you should not really be in a situation where you think that, okay, maybe I would have done that. Maybe I would have something more to show on my CV. Another thing which is really changing, and I kind of got this this impression that some of the doctors, even me included, when I was in India, there's a notion that research is boring, and this is rapidly changing. We get up every day in the morning. The first thing we do is we check our mobiles on how many COVID-related deaths are there, how many COVID-related cases have increased in India and abroad. We keep checking that if there is a vaccine, when the vaccine is coming, if there is a treatment, if treatment is coming. So we all are crazily kind of following research nowadays, and that has been going around for a very long time, by the way, all around the world. Even Donald Trump kind of looks back at Dr. Fauci to before he makes a statement. Well, he does so sometimes. It is again another myth which is changing is it is too late to do a fellowship. People say that I'm 40 years old, 50 years old, 20 years down in the practice, and why should I consider doing a fellowship? It's very so we really have weekly fellowships, monthly fellowships. So there are many short-term options available. So if you want to kind of go for them, then it's really feasible to have overseas fellowship experience. Another thing which research fellowship kind of helps us is to get in-depth knowledge and skills of the super specialty we are going to practice. Consider this. Gladwell, in his book Outlier, which is insanely famous, kind of mentions this 10,000 hour rule for developing any skill. In order to practice it correct way, or in order to be a world-class expert in some skill, we have to clock those numbers of 10,000 hours. In our postgraduate residency program, when we are working in many subspecialties, like I was working in knee, shoulder, spine, general trauma, fractures. So it's really not possible for us to actually focus in the super specialty of what we are going to do in the whole life. So fellowship, one year of fellowship or 2 years of fellowship after your residency program, after your post-graduation, gives you excellent, fantastic opportunity that you do dedicated work in your super specialty. And overseas fellowship also gives you a chance to experience what a state-of-art patient care looks like in your field, so that you can try to emulate or you can try to copy that in your clinical practice. Another thing which is really key is it really helps us to develop key concepts going ahead in practice. We deal with a lot of patients in India. About 100 patients per day we see in our outpatient clinics. We do surgeries on some of them. So it's really important for us to be very efficient. If you're not efficient, then we'll be tired, we'll be burnt out, and our team will be tired. So what we really should follow as a team together is a protocol-based approach. This is really taught to me by Dr. T.K. Kim, who was a member of South Korea, that it's not actually that difficult to see 100 patients every day. If you really follow a protocol-based approach and we really work with the team together. For example, on how we build key concepts in fellowships, which probably we do not get a chance in a residency or other kind of education, is Dr. Kim taught me about surgeries, on how should we approach when you are doing a new surgery or you're doing a new procedure. So first important step is safety. You're doing a surgery and your surgical blade injures the patient, or it injures any of your team members, your nurses, then that is not a good surgery. So the first thing you have to secure is safety of the team and the patient. The second thing you have to secure is accuracy of your surgical steps. Every surgery lasts for, probably if you say that for 2 hours, then we divide it into small steps, and we make sure that we do those small steps with equal accuracy. Only when we have covered the first step and we are master of accuracy, first is safety, then accuracy, then we can go on to do faster surgeries. Now, this is extremely critical for orthopedic surgery, and I would like to expand this to any field of life. That if you're trying something new, if you're learning something, then really practice safety, then accuracy and speed. And I could develop this concept only because I did a fellowship. Next important thing is that there's in India, the doctors or many of the people in various fields do not have very little or or no research experience. If you compare it to the United States, a doctor in postgraduate residency publishes about 4 papers during his residency program. And 75% of them, of those who actually publish papers, continue to do so and remain academically active, professionally excellent throughout their life. As compared to that in India, and unfortunate state of affairs, there is really very few opportunities for us to publish papers because we have so much clinical work. The priorities are really about getting the clinical work done instead of research. So most of us, majority of our doctors, kind of go into private practice after your residency and without any research experience. So the question remains, do doctors need research experience? Why do doctors need research experience? First important thing is that every doctor is a student for life. And you can expand this to any other profession probably. That we remain students for life. And our main sources of learning after post-graduation residency is, number one, we can learn with our own experience. It remains critical, yes. If some treatment works well for your patients, you continue to do so. If you have issues or you have some complications, you kind of change your procedures and methods. That's one of the ways to go about it. Second source of learning could be that you learn from your peers in scientific meetings. When you go, you hear all this leaders talk, and that is another way of learning after your post-graduation. But what remains gold standard really, and which is limitless, is the scientific evidence which kind of guides us throughout our practice. Consider this example: when the COVID came and it hit India, so everyone said that in May or in a couple of months it will be very hot. The virus will kind of die off or something like this. And there were the rumors about the heat in India. There were rumors that chloroquine kind of works. The research, the current available research, which eventually developed, kind of showed us that that's not really the case. We have been led by rumors so far. So having a research experience, having the knowledge of the field which you are an expert at, is really critical in your clinical practice, because as doctors, we have to give these kind of answers to patients. So fellowship really helps us to develop the base of scientific knowledge of what you will practice for your whole life. Of course, it needs to be updated, but once you have a research experience, you also know it becomes easy for you to update it, because you know how to go through the literature, which papers to read and which not. For example, in what I've seen in Hopkins is we really focus on, when you're counseling with the patient, when we are telling them about the surgery, then we really focus on telling them that, for example, if someone needs a shoulder replacement, so instead of saying that if you replace your shoulder, you're going to be perfectly fine, you're going to be really great, it's not going to cause you any trouble, blah, blah, blah. So that's really emotion-based medicine. We should stay away from it. So, once you're in touch with your research side, once you know your data, we kind of quote in Hopkins that if you replace your shoulder, then there is a 10% chance that it needs another operation. Something may go wrong in a span of 15 years. Now, that way, patient is making a very balanced, informed decision about whether he wants to go to the surgery or not. And that's probably doing a favor to your patients. So every doctor is a student for life, and we need to have our knowledge base. Research fellowship helps with that. Another thing which is very striking in India, which we kind of fight, is WhatsApp university culture. Everyone kind of seems to trust whatever they see on WhatsApp. They think it is Bible, and they kind of follow it. And I experienced this with my family, with my friends, who ask me questions like, if we have Iranian tea, will it cure COVID? Because WhatsApp says so. So if you know your scientific literature, you can answer these questions very confidently. Another way research experience kind of helps us is to identify bad scientific science. Trust me when I tell you this, everything that is published in medical journals is really not good scientific evidence. We really need a very good scientific acumen to differentiate good research, which we can follow and for betterment of our patients, and differentiate that from bad scientific evidence. I would like to give you this example. This paper was published in 2017, which kind of showed that cocoa seeds kind of have some kind of relation into curing cancer. But if you actually open this paper and look into it closely, it's not scientific evidence. It's not even English. It's just random words put together, and it doesn't make any sense. So you do not have to, frankly, we do not have to do a research fellowship to understand that this is kind of bad science. But there are many other factors involved, like research methodology and quality of journal, and what is the importance of peer review, what are the issues with open access journals without an impact factor. So once you do a research fellowship, you kind of get very familiar with these kind of terms, and you stay away from bad scientific evidence, and your patients are really benefited by that. Another thing which research experience kind of gives you is scientific temperament in patient care. give an example of this, that in 2017, when I just joined my fellowship in South Korea, South Korean FDA kind of approved stem cell injections for knee arthritis in the name of Invosa. So before adopting any kind of new technology or any treatment modality in my center, we used to follow that. We used to go through all the available literature to find out if it really works, if it's cost effective, what is the efficacy, what is the safety. So we kind of searched the literature through that. We realized that there's not much evidence to support stem cell injections, at least for knee arthritis. So we refrained from this treatment, and our initial research kind of is recently published in an international journal, which the conclusion of that is really that for now we should probably, it is not good for clinical use, widespread clinical use. Probably it is good to do more research into it and to improve that treatment before we use it in general patients. Was not the case really in other centers in South Korea. It became quickly it became a trend. People were getting shots in their knees because it was an easy procedure and it was promising on the paper, and no one really searched the literature for it. So many doctors kind of gave this treatment to their patients. What really happened is, in a couple of years, more research kind of showed that Invosa injection does not really have stem cells. What it really has is kidney tumor cells. And the government had to ban it in 2019. The patients suffered. They came on the streets. There were huge protests in South Korea because of this. And the doctors who were kind of following what was written in the brochure of these companies without actually trusting the scientific evidence, kind of lost their credibility, and they had to suffer lawsuits. So this is just an example of how if you have a research experience, if you know which is a good paper, which is a bad paper, which kind of scientific evidence to follow to help your patients, then it helps you to avoid medical malpractice, and it helps to avoid lawsuits. Another way, and this is extremely critical, this is not just applicable to medical field, but all the other listeners, that if you have research experience, it really gives you a great shot at leadership, not just in your country, but a worldwide leadership and professional growth. Your publications, your presentations at international stage, that really counts. It makes difference. You start getting respect from your peers. You get referrals sometimes from city, sometimes through the country. And if you're Mayo or Johns Hopkins, we have thousands of patients flying in every day to get treated in these great institutes. One thing I would like to say is that Mayo and Johns Hopkins are not really famous for the patient load. Probably there are many more hospitals in the world who treat more number of patients, but what they are really famous for is research. And in Johns Hopkins, at least, more than half of the revenue which Johns Hopkins generates, more than half of it comes from the research donations. So, in all, it really gives you research experience, kind of gives you a shot at making yourself a brand name, trying to become a world leader and for your professional growth. Another way in which research fellowship kind of helps you is it protects your body and mind in a way, because you are more likely, when you're reading all these journals and you are very vigilant about what has been published, you come across these expert opinions, columns, which are written by the leaders all across the world, India and abroad. So, in India, we kind of have this huge problem, which is kind of close to my heart, is violence against doctors. Every day not every day, but, once or twice in a year, there's a big strike, which is happening. And, I was a part of 5 strikes, protest in India because one of my colleagues got beaten up. So, we kind of do these strikes and it works for some time. The government promises something, we take back the strike, and then, just waiting for a couple of months before someone else is beaten up. So that has become really the cycle, and we need to break it. One of the ways to break it is to put research into it, right? To protect yourself from it, you should read all these expert columns, and it has really helped me to deal with how to resolve conflicts with your patients, how to break the bad news to a patient so that it does not turn into a conflict, and you have a compassionate conversation with them. So one way a research fellowship is kind of helps you is it gives you tips on tackling violence and practice mindfulness. Another thing which we doctors lack is financial formal education. We do not know much about how to handle money. So when you're starting your clinical practice, you're opening your own hospital, then you'll have to deal with financial situations, buying a land, setting up the hospital, and we do not really know how to deal with those things. So when you're into research and you're reading all these columns and opinions, trust me, you'll find a lot of data, or you'll find a lot of information on how to be financially, what kind of information a doctor needs to know. Those kind of columns are published, and if you have done a research fellowship, you are more likely to read those columns. Finally, I really want to stress upon this is that every doctor is also a scientist for life. No one can say this better than Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, that cultivation of mind should be the ultimate aim of human existence. As doctors, we really have to cultivate our mind. We have to keep focusing on excellence. We have to be better than before, and we have to keep struggling. So really, a research experience, gives you a scientific mind on how to deal with new problems of the patients and how to really help the society. So I believe that a research experience is really critical for a doctor. So in summary of this huge subtopic of today's talk, that why should you consider doing a fellowship? First is look around you. There are many people who are doing it. So 10 years down the line, you do not want to be a victim of FOMO. Changing myths in clinical practice, which we should be aware of. We need in-depth knowledge and skills of our specialty before we start our practice. We kind of need to build key concepts for efficient practice as we go on in our life. And research experience really helps us to give best evidence-based care for your patients, professional excellence and leadership, and it also helps you in a way to protect yourself. Coming on to the next topic, okay, probably by now, you may have started considering a fellowship, but what's really the important and critical obstacle is how to get an overseas fellowship, and upon that, how to get a funded fellowship. So, addressing the obstacles in getting an overseas fellowship, first is there are limited fellowship options available at home, and most of them are not research oriented. They are kind of continuation of your residency program. So, they do not really offer, the exact kind of research and clinical balance which we need from a fellowship. There's no formal matching process in India. As in US, what doctors kind of after their residency program, they apply for fellowships. The fellowship programs kind of match with the doctor matches with the fellowship program. So that's a whole system which happens in US, which makes it really easy for US doctors to get a fellowship. Unfortunately, in India, we do not have that set up right now. So another thing is that the guidance for fellowships is rare. Which is another obstacle. We do not know how to follow. Many people want to do it, but give up because they do not have good guidance. So that's another obstacle. The final and a critical obstacle for doing an overseas fellowship is financial constraints. All these things are expensive. Living in a Western country and living in a developed country is, of course, takes a beat on your wallet. So I would like to address on how to gain, how to overcome these obstacles. In all, if Indian doctors wish to do overseas fellowship, their best chance is to create their own opportunities. We have to rely on our own abilities. So timing is key, right? Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba, he was speaking at World Economic Forum 2017. He kind of gave this excellent correlation of at what age, what should be our career priorities. If you're less than 20 years old, be a good student. If you're 20 to 30 years old, follow a good boss. If you're 40 to 50 years old, practice what you're best at. If you're 50 to 60 years old, train the next generation. If you're over 60, spend time with your grandchildren. Today, I would like to focus on I believe that most of the audience today kind of fall into this category of 20 to 30 years old. I would like to extend it to 35 years old because, as you know, the medical education is kind of long. So, you can follow this until you're 35 years old. We really need to follow a good boss. So when it comes to, if you're someone who's seeking an overseas fellowship, what is the definition of a good mentor? Good mentor at home would be someone who's academically active, who's publishing papers, someone who's internationally renowned because their network they can share their network with you, and you can have overseas fellowship, through that. Another good mentors are those who have done international fellowships and they know some people outside, or they can share their experience with you. So all these are good mentors. Another way which kind of helped me also is to be active in social groups. I was a part of Doctor Ambedkar Medicos Association in JJ Hospital. I made great friends there. They helped me meet people, and that was a very good way to connect with people, at least within the country. International Ambedkar Doctors Federation and Ambedkar Caravan are another examples of great social platform in which intellectuals in the society are really have come together. And trust me and believe me, when you ask these guys for help, they are more than happy to help you. Not just, people in these groups are not just from India, but also from other countries, and they are willing to help. All you have to do is ask them. So when you're working in India, networking with your potential mentors is extremely critical. So networking in India, our goal should be what appears at the bottom, to get honest recommendations for fellowships abroad, right? And there are certain ways to get it. First, we really have to watch our attitude towards our mentor. It should not reflect as selfish. We should really focus on mutual growth, publishing together, doing clinical work together. Our approach should not be fawning, bootlicking, or in India we call chaplacy. That really does not work in long term. What we really need to focus on, hard work. I do not believe in the concept of talent too. I think it's oversell. What really works if you want professional excellence is your hard work. The hard work should really be directed towards three things. First is diligence. Second is passion. Third is you have to be humble. All of this will convert that your mentors kind of will respect you, your mentors will trust you, and that is what will turn into honest recommendations for fellowships abroad. Networking with people or world leaders outside, or your potential mentors in overseas country. So the starting point would be for me was recommendation from my home mentors. Another way, if you have lack of home mentors you do not have opportunity of having recommendations of whom to email and recommendation or letter of recommendations, one good way to get these emails is through PubMed. For example, if you're interested in interventional cardiology, so if I want a fellowship in interventional cardiology, the simplest thing to do is to go on PubMed, put interventional cardiology, and see who has published maximum papers in last 3 years. So, these senior authors are mentioned as corresponding authors. You can get their emails very easily from PubMed, and you make the list of these potential mentors. A good way to go about it is start sending them emails. When I started applying for fellowships, I sent emails to 56 international doctors. Next day when I got up, I had a reply from 13 of them. 2 of them turned out to be a funded fellowship. It was available. So it's really about numbers. The more number of places you apply to, there's a more chance that you will. There's a more chance that you'll actually, I'm sorry, I think there's some issue with the. Okay, great. So apologies for that. I think the presentation was not moving. All right, so we're talking about networking abroad. So our professional meetings are another great place to meet your mentors, international mentors. So the thing to do when you go to all these professional meetings in conferences is to really approach the international speakers. do not be shy. These are just normal people like us. It's they feel good when we go and approach them and say hi. And our doors really open. We really do not know what is sitting behind that door. I would like to quote my relationship with Dr. Youngle, who's one of the leading shoulder surgeons in South Korea. I met him for the first time, as you can see in bottom left corner, is in July 2015. And we kind of started talking, and after that we exchanged emails, and I have been in touch with him ever since. I could not do a fellowship under his guidance because of financial constraints, but nonetheless we remained in touch. We met sometimes in various conferences in South Korea, and we kind of developed a good bonding. And when I was leaving South Korea in June 2019, he invited me, as you can see in the center pic, for a dinner. When after 1 year, when he came to India for another for a conference, then I invited him, and he came there with his fellows, and we had great time. He recently retired, and he still remains one of my contacts. And all of that happened was really because I just went and said hi to him. So networking abroad is really up to you. You should create your own opportunities. Another critical thing is when you're applying for fellowships, when you're sending emails, it's really, really important that we really understand the art of writing an email. It's not that simple. It's really critical that we say our salutation should be either dear or respected or hi. I prefer dear if I'm actually sending an email for the first time to a potential mentor, because see, you have to understand that these people do not know us personally. So all they have is this email, and they judge us based on that. So we have to be really meticulous when you're writing emails. The subject should really contain what and when. For example, I want to say that I'm applying for a fellowship at Johns Hopkins University in shoulder division starting from August 2019. That's a good subject line for an email. Applying for a fellowship. It should really not be about nice to meet you, congratulations, greetings. Those are not good subject lines. The main body should be divided into two parts or three parts. First is introduce yourself in short. That really is to show your competency, but do not oversell yourself. Say what is the fact, say what is the truth, and that's it. Second thing is how this fellowship opportunity can help you in your career. Third thing is, and the most important thing is, how can you contribute to their fellowship program? How can you be of help to them? Please make sure that you check spelling and grammar. We think that they do not have enough time to read your emails, with great detail, but these people really need to have one look to understand that, how serious you are about this opportunity by how many spelling mistakes and grammars you do. So really be very vigilant about that. Make sure that you make a good CV. Prepare a good CV which looks very professional, and your recommendation letters should be also very professional. The format of these are available online. I can talk about it for an hour on how to make CVs and how to make recommendation letters, how to write emails, but we do not have time for that today. Maybe some other time. Another obstacle for an overseas fellowship is really getting funding. Right? As I said, that it's very expensive to go and live in another country. So it really helps to have funding for your fellowship. So funded fellowships abroad are really rare because you'll be selected based on what you can bring to the table. Your previous research experience is going to count a lot, and getting involved in the research as soon as possible at home is the smart thing to do right now for you. If you're planning to go for an abroad fellowship and you want a funding, it's really critical that that our network at home, our recommendations, if you have strong recommendations, that is also going to help you securing a funded fellowship. Your industry sponsorship is another thing which is critical. If you do not have above sources of getting a funded fellowship overseas, someone at home, some company, some pharma company, or some kind of implant prosthesis company, they kind of have this program for young doctors. They send them to other countries, which is mostly for short term, but nonetheless, that's one of the options. And it really helps to save money, because it doesn't matter even if you get funding, you need a backup plan. You need your backup money. Just in case. And if you're planning to do a short-term fellowship, where mostly you will not have a funding, it really helps to save money, because that will be your only source of income and a source of expenditure. So now that we have an idea about how to get an overseas fellowship, it's really critical that we understand how to excel during these fellowships, which kind of points to note, what is the best way to get best out of these fellowships. Because it's really astonishing that 6 months, 1 year, whatever time you do for a fellowship, it really goes away really fast. So unless you are very you pay attention to very critical things, the time will go away, and you will miss the chance to make your mark in your fellowship. First important thing is to learn as a clinician. I cannot stress on this enough, is that even at Hopkins, the resources are limited. The number of people are limited. The number of equipments and everything is, we think that if it's Hopkins, if it's US, they have everything, but that is really not the case. Resources, it doesn't matter where you go, the resources are limited. So, we have to really pay keen attention to how our mentors in overseas fellowship are solving their clinical problems. They really, if they are faced with any problem, they ask for ideas from their team members. They include their own ideas. They kind of turn that into protocol. If you can see on the bottom left corner, is this kind of flow chart, which helps you as doctors, your nurses, and your other clinical staff to kind of stick to the protocol, and it kind of improves the efficiency of the whole team. So, one of the great things which I learned in my fellowships was how to solve any problems, how to develop your protocols, how to integrate your protocols to make a whole system and to run an efficient practice. Your keen observation is going to help you a lot, because there are chances you will not be involved so much. You will not have a hands-on experience. So your eyes and your ears should be your learning instrument, and you really have to pay attention to small details. Then it's also critical that we make notes, right? So what you should do is you should take a diary, your fellowship diary. You should start a vlog. You should start a blog. You should somehow document it. When you document these, if you do not document, you will forget it. So when you have this diary in which you have noted whatever you have learned every day in your fellowship, that will act as your Bible when you actually go ahead and do your clinical practice. Another thing which I've seen and which is amazing is teamwork. That doctor is, if you can see in the left side corner, that doctor is really only a part of a big system. He's a leader in many ways, but he cannot do everything, right? So what I've learned is that there's so many other people who are involved, like physiotherapists, nurses, care providers, family members of the patient. They all work together so that the patient can be benefited, right? And I really learned a great deal about this in my fellowship in Korea. It's another great thing which I saw in Hopkins is that as soon as in between surgeries, there's something called as the turnover time. Some of you may know about it. That as surgeons and the team members, we really want to keep this time short so that we are more efficient. We are trying to get more cases done, or we are trying to plan to go home early, and also it is good for patient care. Patients do not have to wait. So in order to do that, what we really need to do is, after surgery is over, someone has to come and clean the operating room. So, and this process I've seen in Hopkins is the whole team is involved. There are times in which my boss, these photos are just representation purposes. These are not Hopkins photos, but it really tells a story that, even there are many times in which my professor kind of picks up the mop and starts, cleaning the floors, and the whole team kind of turns the room together. And that really is a great example of teamwork, because ultimately our goal is for patient. Another key thing to notice in your overseas fellowship is, as a care provider, is compassionate communication. In India, we see so many patients together. We typically have 30 minutes to, especially in government hospitals, we typically have 2 minutes, 5 minutes to see every patient. It is not really possible to address all their queries and, to actually show the compassionate side. What I learned in South Korea is that even if you have a very busy practice, you can actually have compassion. The tone of your voice, the way you listen to them without having an opinion, you listen to that completely, and then you respond and you address their queries. And this kind of compassionate communication and the doctor-patient relationship I have seen as a state of art in my overseas fellowship, and it has really helped me a lot in understanding this aspect of our clinical practice. Another thing which you will see in an overseas fellowship are what are the innovative ways for patient care. Your surgeries, your drugs, your medicines are only one of the ways to treat patients. There are so many issues which patients have. There's no science does not address all of them. We need to take the help of music, meditation, movies. I'm not sure if it really helps on the basis of science, but it really takes their mind off for some time from their problems. And I have seen that to be a very satisfactory experience for patients. So I was involved in South Korea in arranging these movie sessions for our patients once or twice in the year, where all of them would come and we would see an inspirational movie together and give them some kind of positive message. And the reviews were really good. The patients were really happy. And when you do an overseas fellowship, I'm sure that you will get a chance to see this kind of innovative ways. If you look down, then this is Seoul National University, Bundang Hospital. This is an Oprah group really coming to the hospital. You can see here that there's a saline bottle and there are patients around. And this was Christmas, and they really perform for free in the hospital, and that's a great initiative. And I think going ahead in India, you could use some of this in your clinical practice. Your approach for research fellowship is little more, I want to say, very meticulous. Dr. Ed McFarlane, my mentor in Hopkins, kind of taught me a great deal about this. That first is that we have to set realistic targets. We should not come here and say that we will win the world. We really have to, with all our hard work, the maximum you can do, you have to set that goal. 10 publications per year, 10 to 15 publications per year is a good amount, I would say. Because all these projects we are choosing, we have to be very wise. We have to choose projects. We have to work our efforts to secure a first authorship. So we should really, search for those kind of opportunities with our mentors. We should also seek opportunities for podium and poster presentations. That is going to count in your CV. Another thing I would like to say, if you want to do an overseas fellowship, is to get yourself familiar with statistical analysis. And that is going to make you very efficient in your research projects. Some tips which I learned, which have really helped me now and will help me in the future, was from my mentor, Dr. Juano from Seoul National University. He's an author of over 150 research articles. He's a great guy. He taught me this very important thing, which stuck with me for the whole life, is small things do make a big difference. Makes a difference if you are the first one to walk in at work, if you're the last one to leave the work, if you read about the topic before any meeting, even if you're not the speaker. You should really try to ask one question in every discussion, in every meeting. When you're given an answer, you should really smile and agree to disagree. And people want to remember you as a good guy, and that's most important. Finally, it is really important to be meticulous. Even if you make a draft of your manuscript, if you write an email, it doesn't matter which document you're making, it's critical that we read it ourselves 3 times to make sure there are not any errors. So all these small things are kind of, it really helps to develop your confidence. It really helps to develop the trust between you and your mentors. When you're doing an overseas fellowship, there are many barriers, right? Are not related to your fellowship per se, but your language barrier, your accent is different, your culture is different. So, all these barriers, they are, it really depends on how we approach them. If you approach them with positive mindset, it can be a game changer. People can really like you. And you don't have to struggle with these things every day. What I would suggest is, if you go to another country where English is not the first language, then you should at least learn how to speak, how to say please, sorry, and thank you in the local language. That will take your game a lot ahead, and smile always helps. I was in Korea for a couple of years, and then my main obstacle was in learning was that I could not understand the language. So in order to overcome that barrier, I joined the Korean class on the weekend, and there was a set of people. We used to go to a university for a couple of months, and it was a great learning experience. I could write, I could read Korean, I could understand a bit. My vocabulary is still limited, but that's another thing which I developed, which I did in order to overcome my barrier. So it is really about, making these barriers into opportunities. and how your mindset is. Another thing which is critical in your overseas fellowship really is to make a social life, right? The people you work with, make them your friends. Get involved in your hobbies. If you like hiking, if you like socializing with people, if you really like, at your work and outside work, we should try to make friends, and that is really going to take you, make your stay there very pleasant, and you'll have amazing memories for your whole life. What really helps me is these are, when you go for these overseas fellowships, they are high stake jobs, right? They are not your research or travel. There you will be, especially if you're working in Hopkins or good big institutes, they will expect you to do a lot of work for them. You will get 10 to 20 emails every day. You'll have to reply to them, and it's really it could really be it needs a lot of effort, frankly. It needs a lot of hard work, and we have many distractions in life. So we kind of tend to lose focus, and we may not be able to perform to 100% during these fellowships. So in order to be focused on our mission, in order to avoid getting burnt out, what really helped me personally was meditation. I cannot say this enough. It really changes your mind and how you think and how you perform. Like, for example, when the COVID started, we did not know, we did not really know how to approach working from home. That was a new thing for all of us, and we were anxious initially. We kind of we kind of were sleeping. We would get up late in the morning. The day would go away, and without even checking one email. So it was really a difficult time for not just for me, but my peers, my friends. So I kind of started doing meditation sessions with my family together, which we are still doing. It's been like almost 3 months now. Just 10 minutes sitting with them and meditating kind of helps us to realize that that we are in this together, and we are going to overcome this. And it really focuses your mind on your job, and really helped me with being productive even if I was working at home. So meditation is a great great aspect of your life if you can adopt it. Now this could be a little bit heavy for the topic of discussion, but I was for me my fellowship in Korea was kind of gave me a purpose of life, kind of made me understand my spirituality, kind of made me understand the importance of giving, working for the society, or an attitude of giving back to the society. My temple visits, I used to visit on monthly basis with my professor to temples. If you can see on this, there was Buddhist monk there, and she's a great person. She's a great teacher. She lived in Tibet. She traveled across India, and we used to chat many times about that. And she really, made us understand the importance of meditation and how we can use that to help our patients in patient care. And there was a time in which I was invited to give out donations to poor patients, and that really gave me a lot of satisfaction as a person, and made me realize that that is the purpose of your life. So an overseas fellowship might just give you the purpose of your life. You never know. I would like to touch upon some of the new frontiers of medical education, medical research. So artificial intelligence is really coming up. It is based on machine learning. What it really does is it takes the data of from what is learned from previous old patients. It combines that with scientific evidence, and it kind of makes the whole system in which it is taking fast decisions. It is processing the information in much faster way than normal doctors can, and it is giving you quick diagnosis. It is saving your time. The accuracy of artificial intelligence kind of improves with each case. The scientific evidence to back it is in research stage right now, and what it really lacks, most importantly, is compassion towards our patients. So that is one of the reasons why, for now, we do not have to worry as doctors. They will not replace us. If you want to know more about artificial intelligence, I recommend you watch this amazing movie called as Hers. Joaquin Phoenix has really killed it in this movie, and I recommend that. It kind of is easier to understand artificial intelligence, or how it works, how it is going to affect your life in the future. If you watch this movie, it's simpler to learn than reading any article. Another thing which is coming up is robotic surgeries, and within last 5 years, it has really rapidly increased in the United States and many developed countries. I have heard about some centers in India which has really adopted robotic surgeries. The main, if you can see that in this in this operating table, there's only one surgeon which is standing, and rest are not really the assistants. It is really the robotic arm which is helping the doctor in doing the surgery. So probably in future it may look like this. We were kind of contemplating if we should adopt robotic surgery in our practice when I was in Korea during my knee fellowship. And as already stated, that before adopting any new treatment modality, we kind of go into research on if there is even enough evidence for us to kind of use that new modality. And what we realized is there's limited current evidence, or scientific benefit for using robotic surgery for knee replacement. It's promising, but the cost is really high. It probably would not be cost effective, and it needs further research so that it can help our patients. Another thing which we are using, which is coming up, is 3D printing, and we are using this in Hopkins for patients, for very selected few patients whose bones are really damaged really severely. And what we do is we put the CT scans into specialized softwares like this, and we play around with it, and the computer kind of suggests, or the engineers kind of develop this artificial prosthesis. And when we approve of this model on computer, it turns into a plastic model which they give us, and the surgeons are able to judge that, okay, this probably looks good. When the surgeons approve it, it's converted into a prosthesis which is customized especially for that particular patient, because he has such bad arthritis or bone loss that a normal prosthesis would not do. So we kind of create custom prosthesis. So this is a great application of 3D printing. We talked about all these big things like AI, robotics, and 3D printing, but in India, our priorities should really be, we really have to introspect and really have to think that what should be our research priorities for medical research in India. It should really focus. One of the important things is effectiveness of our health policies, whether it's actually benefiting the poor. I had this when I was working at the ground level in India during my residency, my internship, my bond at Sion Hospital. I kind of we got into many situations where it's 3 o'clock in the night. A patient has come with a fracture from interior parts of Maharashtra, and they bring their ration card, because that is supposed to give them the insurance, the government insurance that is going to ensure their free treatment. But for some reason, it does not get processed, because his name on the ration card is different from what it is on Aadhaar card or what it is on any other document. And we as doctors, and many of my friends have done it, they try to connect, they try to convince these the bureaucrats, or we try to convince the approving authorities that this patient really needs our help, and we should really try to get him insurance. So doctors kind of try to be the middle link of the inefficiencies of government policies, and we do that a lot. But what would really make a difference is if doctors start publishing on this. If you actually do a research on how many poor patients you had and how many of them were eligible for government insurance, government health insurance, especially for their surgeries or their treatments, and how many really got it, right? So if we kind of start publishing this data, then it could help to quote. It could really help when they are making the health policies. And government can give any kind of data which should be taken with a pinch of salt. So if the research is coming from doctors itself, then it will help us to improve upon the health policies. So another thing which in India we can do is, which has already been done. I would like to give a great example, that Indus knee prosthesis for knee replacement, which was built in India. It is they have published 5-year results of this, and they're doing great. So I think it's affordable for Indian patients. It suits the anatomy of Indian patients. So we need these kind of efforts from Indian researchers to come up with local indigenous products. Another thing which we need medical research on is issues of healthcare providers. I read many articles about the health of doctors in United States, how many are burnt out, how many are, addicted, and, all this kind of data. And, and the government kind of uses this to make their healthcare policies. So, instead of doing strikes, and which is good for some, for some time, but if you want to make a real impact in changing how healthcare providers are treated by government, we really need to publish papers on this so that the opposition, or, we can hold them to get our demands. So in summary of my talk today, in overseas fellowships for Indian doctors. So fellowships do improve your patient care. Networking and diligence is key to grab a fellowship. Your performance during fellowship is key for professional growth and global leadership. Indian medical research should really be based on indigenous issues instead of just following what is happening in the West. Before I leave you today, I would like to give you some basics, some basic concepts which I believe in, which has helped me through my journey. Godfather, in the movie Godfather, Don Corleone kind of says, and which has stuck with me, that a man who does not spend enough time with his family can never be a real man. So we should really focus on where we came from. We should not lose a sight of that. Your parents, your siblings, your extended family, they really are your supports. They are going to stand with you, no matter in which situation you are, how low you feel. You can always call them. When you meet them, it's really a transforming experience, and we should really get our support from our family. Another thing which we are really which is form a basis of my philosophy is, do not let anyone suppress you. It doesn't matter even if you are, it doesn't matter based on your caste, your creed, your race, your color, your religion, your sexual orientation, your sexual preference. It is really, really not important what other people think. Do not give them the authority to oppress you. Remember these words from Tyrion Lannister from Game of Thrones. Never forget what you are, because the rest of the world will not. Wear it like an armor, and it can never be used to hurt you. This really stuck by. I really follow this. Do not let anyone oppress you. A few tips about mindfulness, which I really try to follow every day, is we should really watch our thoughts. They become our words. Watch your words, because they become your actions. Watch your actions. They become your habits. Watch your habits. They become your character. And watch your character, because it becomes your destiny. I want to stress on this. I repeat, watch your thoughts. No matter where you are right now, what you think now will inspire what you do next. And that is what you will become. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your great talk, Dr. Prashant. There are quite a few take-home messages for everyone here. Firstly, we looked at the reasons why anyone should try to get a fellowship, with around 56% of our doctors availing of these opportunities to gain specialized knowledge. In order to get these overseas opportunities, we need to work for it by finding a good mentor, networking with people, and there were a lot of good tips on how to do that. We also learned about the importance of writing respectful, relevant emails. To excel in the duration of the fellowship, it is important to observe the mentors, especially in the patient care protocol developed and practiced by them. The talk also stressed upon focusing on research as a lucrative, exciting field which takes us closer to Babasaheb's vision of the cultivation of mind. Research in India needs to address upon the indigenous issues, especially related to health of poor people, instead of only following what's done in the West. Also, thank you for reminding us with the example of Baba Saheb that irrespective of where we are, we can achieve excellence in any field if we guard our thoughts. Now, moving on to the question and answer session. The first question for you, Dr. Prashant. How can we motivate our students to do research?
Wow, that's a fantastic question. I would like to say that there's a real difference in the attitude of youngsters. Even if they are pre-med before their MBBS or during their MBBS, what they really need to understand is what are the incentives? What do you get if you are good at research, right? Trust me when I say this, that we at Hopkins, just in our shoulder division, there are always 5 medical students, like MBBS equivalent, or even before that, that means in high school, like 11th and 12th, they are involved in research because they know the dividends. They know that if they're involved in research early on, if they publish their papers, even if they publish 1 or 2 papers at that stage, that is really going to help them in their careers ahead, in getting recommendations, in getting fellowships here and abroad. So, trust me, people are doing that. There are students in India who are very vigilant, who are working in silence. You think that no one's doing it, they're making jokes about it, that this guy is boring, but trust me, they are building their career. And we really need to need to know what we are getting of research. Number one, it will make, when you start that early, you will make many more mentors going ahead in life. Number two, that if you're then you get really good at research, and then it's really easy to land a job in which you'll be paid to do a research, right? And third thing is that it will really help. I cannot stress this enough. You will make a lot of mentors. It's really going to change your professional life if early on you start getting involved into research. So the youth or the young people really have to understand the importance of research in terms of the professional excellence.
Thank you, Dr. Prashant. A few more questions are there. What changes would you suggest for making healthcare more accessible, especially in rural India?
Wow. Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I have to say that I'm not an expert on this, on health related things, but I have some experience working at the ground level. So I would just like to give my personal experience in it. Probably I'm wrong about this, but here it is. So one of the ways in which, by the way, I kind of was a part of a research article, not a research article, it was a column of how should, in all this developing countries where we have so many poor people, what kind of treatment changes we need, or, especially in orthopedic point of view. So I have kind of worked on this for literature. So I know a bit about this, that one of the ways in which we can improve the accessibility of healthcare for rural patients is by, first and foremost, the government has to spend more money on healthcare, right? Period. There is no excuse for that. The COVID has really shown us that what is the vulnerability of a system, of a healthcare system. Typically, there's US kind of spends like, I think it's 10% of their GDP on healthcare. The minimum requirement of OECD countries is 5%, and India spends, if I'm not wrong, about 1%, which is travesty, which is really a huge tragedy. And it's kind of that government is not taking its things seriously. So government has to spend more money so that the government hospitals become really strong, and they are able to cater to more patients. The second thing we need to do to improve healthcare, especially for rural patients, is we have a tier system in India. There's a primary care system, there's a secondary care system, there's a tertiary care system. What really is not happening is the utilization of the primary care system. As an intern, I was posted in rural, my rural posting. When I actually went there, the hospital had one medical officer who would see about 10 patients every day, and some of the advice he had to give, unfortunately, he had to give because of lack of facilities at that rural center was he was just referring people for simple ailments to big hospitals. So, what really happens is, it's also difficult for doctors to work in rural areas because, some of them do not have toilets. Some of them, do not have medicines. So, I don't know if they are really very well equipped. That is another way. If, when I was in KEM, we used to treat a lot of fractures, simple fractures, which could be taken care of at secondary centers. But because of the inavailability, good good facilities, they were referred to us. Most of the patients who come to, like, for example, in internship, we used to see patients of cough and cold at JJ Hospital, which is a tertiary care center, and that is the failure of a system. Those people are not interested in coming here. The only reason they're coming is because they are not getting treatment elsewhere. So government really needs to build up the primary health care and secondary health care, so that poor patients can go there and they can trust the system.
Thank you, Dr. Prashant. The next question is, how did the Ambedkarite community help you in your journey?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for that question. Actually, it's a great pleasure that I have been associated with some associations and organizations, and they have really shaped up my career. I want to give the credit. They're really equally important. My part in when I was a kid, yeah, even in living in Chandrapur, our grandparents used to take us to Buddha Vihar, and we used to, our upbringing has really been very spiritual. And as we grew, that kind of forms how your brain works, how you think. And after that, we moved on. When I went to JJ Hospital, I was a part of Doctor Ambedkar Medicos Association. So, that really started. I met great doctors. And what it really showed me, coming from a small city, what it really showed me that, you can be a big doctor in Mumbai even if you're from Chandrapur. And for that, at that time, that was a huge inspiration for me. These people were just doing their normal jobs, but I knew that, okay, they belong to the same community, but they are, they are making their name in Mumbai, and that's possible. And then, many people we never know whom we are inspiring. So these people helped me that way. They helped me personally. They shared their networking contact with me, and that moved on. When I moved on to TK Hospital, my mentor there, Dr. TK, came here. Probably I'm not sure if it's appropriate to say it here, but he was Buddhist, and we kind of connected very, very well on that level. We used to share a lot of Buddhist philosophy, and he really helped me. I mean, it's kind of ironic that Buddhism developed in India, but when I went to Korea, I became more Buddhist, right? And because I was surrounded by these people, and you really take them seriously. So I agree with you that being associated, being spiritually active, and all of those things really pays you very well in your career also. And recently I have come in contact with so many doctors all across the United States. I would like to mention Mr. Manish Patil, who was my friend from South Korea, and he really connected me with Mangesh Dahiwale and all of you guys. And the reason I'm sitting here is also because of the Ambedkarite movement, right?
Yeah, thank you. Next question is, what role model young generation needs to follow?
So, that's a great question, actually. The thing is that, okay, I'm on social medias, and I see all these youngsters going crazy about, TikTok and YouTube celebrities, which, they're really influenced by that. And, in the world full of TikToks and Facebook, we should, the young people who really want to achieve excellence, they should really identify their role models. Frankly, for me personally, do not go beyond Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, his struggles in life, what he has achieved through all these struggles, and what kind of things he has done for society. That is enough inspiration we need. That is probably the role model we need. We do not need to go beyond. So, choose your role models very, very wisely. really be cautious when which pages are you liking on social media, because you absorb content from them. They kind of affect your thinking. So as I stressed enough in my talk again, that thoughts matter. Follow the right role models, be inspired, motivated, and get things done. Everything's possible.
Okay. One last question. Does college where you do PG matters?
I would like to say that people put a lot of emphasis on this, where you do education from, where you do your graduation from. It is many people kind of flaunt about it, or they kind of are very proud of it, and you should be, because it's really difficult to get into big institutions, and it really helps us in our medical education, right? But I want to say, in long run, it's as you go on in your life, it tends to not matter so much, because it's just a part of your life. Patients are not going to come to you just because you have passed from a particular hospital. They're going to come to you based on your excellence. I mean, yeah, it gives you kind of a good starting point where you start from, and people kind of recognize, okay, he has come from big institutes. But in long run, what really matters is your hard work, which you put every day. If you're compassionate to your patients, if you do an honest work, and trust me, you're going to be successful. You're going to have money. You're going to have fame. If you're involved in research, it will push you towards excellency. So, as I said, it does not matter where you are right now. What really matters is what you think and what you do, and that will guide your future process. So, I don't want to pay too much attention to what a college is in PG or UG.
Thank you, Dr. Prashant and Dr. Sonika. Dr. Prashant, would you like to say a few words to us before we move on to the vote of thanks?
Yeah. This has been amazing. Thank you so much, all the viewers. I hope some of you, it wasn't your waste of time completely. Thanks for sticking by. And I would really like to thank Ambedkar Caravan and International Ambedkarite Doctors Federation for putting this together. I would like to thank all these people who work in the background. I may not know you, but I'm thankful, and you have the blessings of thousands of people who are joining every day. Thank you, Mangesh Dahiwale. He's a great guy. I talked to him a couple of times. And thank you, Dr. Bele, Dr. Bodhi. I think you guys are doing a fantastic job. What you should really be proud of is you're becoming the voice, or you're giving the platform to some of us who are ready to help the society. But now you're giving us the platform, and that probably should be your greatest achievement. So congratulations on that. And thank you so much for having me here. This has been great.
Thank you, Dr. Prashant, for your kind words. I, on behalf of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Caravan and Mangesh Dahiwale sir, extend our gratitude to our speaker, Dr. Prashant Meshram, for sharing with us his journey from the small town of Chandrapur to Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, United States. It was a pleasure to have you with us today, and we hope this is the beginning of many more such interactions. Thank you once again. Jai Bhim, Namo Buddhaya.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.